Welcome! I will be talking about creature damage calculation in Heroes of Might and Magic 5 and the mod Heroes of Might and Magic 5.5. Now, it seems that some of the documentation and in-game descriptions may either be outdated or wrong. I tested some aspects, but not all of it. However, I think this information may still be useful if you want to learn more about the general principles. I will not be discussing spell damage as it is completely different from the attack damage. So in Heroes 5, the damage that an attacking creature deals depends on the number of creatures in the attacking stack, as well as the creature's base damage range. The game takes a random number from the damage range multiplied by the stack size. This is then multiplied by a number which depends on the difference between the attack of the creature that deals the damage and the defense of the receiving unit. This can be expressed in this formula. Damage equals stack size multiplied by a random number between min and max creature damage multiplied by 1 plus 5% times attack minus defense. This essentially means that you deal 5% additional damage per extra attack you have over the opponent's defense. In the Heroes 5.5, the 5% value has been changed to what seems like 3%. In their mod user manual, it is stated that the actual value is 2.5%, but it doesn't stand up to testing in the version of the game that I play, which is RC15 Beta 5. So maybe the documentation is old. So this essentially means that depending on which version of the game you play, you deal 5% or 3% additional damage per extra attack you have over the opponent's defense. If the opponent has more defense than the attacker, then the formula changes a little bit. Instead of multiplying this part of the equation, you divide it by the 1 plus 5% times defense minus attack. As a result, having 1 less attack than the defender equals to a little less than 5% less damage. From the defender's perspective, there are diminishing returns from each additional point of defense. Just like in the case of attack, the multiplier for defense has been changed to 3% less damage in Heroes 5.5. So what stat is more valuable to increase your total damage output, base damage or attack? It depends on the base stats of both, it depends on the base stats of the attacking creature. If you look at the battle of 100 peasants versus 100 peasants, where both units have 1 base damage and 1 attack, and 1 defense, then increasing your base damage by 1 would double your total damage output. By comparison, increasing the attack would increase it only by 5%. Attack is more useful for creatures with higher base damage. For example, archangels, which have a base damage of 50 and attack of 31. 1 additional point of damage will increase their damage output by only 2%. The break point at which attack becomes more valuable than defense is when the creature has more than average of 20 base damage. This usually starts at tier 6, so in majority of cases 1 damage point is more valuable than 1 attack. And for armies consisting of tier 3 creatures and below, 1 base damage point is more valuable than 2 attack. So in 5.5 mod, damage is even more useful in comparison to attack. And it is always better for creatures that have less than an average of 34 base damage. So far we have looked at 4 factors that can contribute to how much damage will be dealt. And they are attacker's attack, defender's defense, attacker's stack size, and attacker's base damage. But there are also a bunch of other possible modifiers. They include good and bad luck rolls. So in the base game, good luck rolls makes you deal double damage, and this has been nerfed to 1.66 in Heroes 5.5, and bad luck causes you to deal half the normal damage. In 5.5 mod, it causes you to deal 0.6, like 60% damage. There's also creature skills, such as ignoring part of the target defense by the Arcane Archer, or poison from assassins, and large shield for footmen, which decreases the range damage they take. There's also hero skills and abilities, such as attack, defense, and archery, and some miscellaneous sources, such as weekly bonuses. For example, in week of Might and Magic, non-magic damage is increased by 50%. The most important modifier we have not looked at so far is range penalty, as it normally affects almost every ranged creature. This means that when using ranged attacks, the creature will inflict half its normal damage if the target is further away than half a battlefield away. If the creature doesn't have no range penalty ability, it is possible to acquire it from Treeborn Weaver artifact. Besides range penalty, hero and creature abilities, ranged damage can also be reduced by bonus from walls in Siege. Enemy walls decrease range damage by 50%, which is multiplicative with the modifier from the range penalty. So creature with range penalty will do only 25% damage to enemies behind castle walls. If that wasn't enough, then ranged units usually have melee penalty, which causes them to deal only half the damage in melee combat. So this sums up all I know about attack damage calculation in Heroes of Might and Magic 5. My main information source for this was the fan manual. I think it came together with the GOG Good Old Games version of the game, or maybe it was added to the game folder after installing the 5.5 mod. Either way, it can be found in the fan documentation folder in the place where you have installed the game. I also refer to the user manual for the Heroes 5.5 mod, which can be downloaded from the ModDB site. I did not test everything that has been described in the documentation, only the melee attack calculation for 5.5. It is possible that the game descriptions for the luck damage multiplier and other materials are outdated or incorrect. However, it should give a rough understanding of the basic principles of how everything works behind the scenes. So, spell damage calculation works in a completely different way, so I think that deserves a video of its own. Let me know if I missed anything about attack damage calculation. One thing that I learned while making this is that creatures have a native terrain bonus, where they get an additional 1 attack and 1 defense when in home terrain. For example, grass for haven and underground for dungeon. So thanks for watching and see ya!